Hello, Stargate fans. Don't mind my weird camera angles here. My name is David Reed. Welcome to Dial the Gate, episode 116. Joseph Mallozzi is back to discuss season 4 of Stargate Atlantis, the year that he and Paul Mullie took over as executive producers of the show. This is going to be an interesting episode. But before we bring him in, if you enjoy Stargate and you want more content like this on YouTube, it would mean a great deal if you click that like button. It really makes a difference with YouTube's algorithm and will definitely help the show grow its audience. Please do consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend, and if you want to get notified about future episodes, click the subscribe icon. Giving the bell icon a click will notify you the moment a new video drops, and you'll get my notifications of any last-minute guest changes. This is key if you plan on watching live, and clips from this live stream will be released over the course of the next several days on both the Dial the Gate and GateWorld.net YouTube channels. Now, as this is a live episode, Joe is with me live on youtube.com/dialthegate for the next hour and change. So if you have questions for him, our moderators are in the chat ready to receive those. So you just type @dialthegate and then ask a question. And then they'll get those over to me, and I will ask a handful of those questions at the end of the interview. We're focusing on season 4 of Atlantis in this episode, so those questions will be the first to get entertained by me. Without further ado, Joseph Mallozzi, writer, executive producer, Stargate Atlantis, season 4, Joe. Man.
This takes me back.
Yes, I would imagine it does. Mostly good feelings, I'm hoping?
Yeah, of course. I mean, bittersweet. Brad and Robert moved on, handed over the reins, and Paul and I stepped up, and with the backing of Carl Binder and Martin Garrow and Alan McCullough, I think delivered a great 4th season.
It's one of my favorites of the show for sure. Before I get into that, how much exposure of fan content have you had online in terms of like fan production, fan videos, fan films?
To be honest with you, I have not checked out any of the fan films, or I think I checked out one, but it was a long time ago.
Okay.
I will check out, creations online. If it's on Twitter, and with a click I can see it, I will check it out. Some really great stuff out there. But in terms of like fan films, they just feel like such a big investment. I haven't really had the opportunity to check them out.
I can understand that. Power 543 Fan Films just released a short. It's about 6 minutes long, called Stargate SG-1 New Mission, and they sent me the link yesterday, and I'm going to post that at the end of our video here. It's brand new, and I'm always on board for helping to promote this kind of content in the fan community, so I wanted to bring that up at the top of the show.
I will definitely check it out.
Stargate Atlantis Season 4 brought out some major changes to the franchise. I really felt, me personally, largely that the season really showed that Atlantis had legs. And I mean, if you think back on SG-1, season 4 of SG-1, not to say that the seasons that came before it weren't solid, but it was really, again, proving that the material worked. It's just, another excellent season proving that the material is solid. I'm getting a notification here that your mic is a little bit soft. If you could move a little bit closer to your mic, then that would. It's you're wearing it. If you could just speak up.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but would you agree with that statement that the season was just proving that that this model continues to work regardless of what show the Stargate is featured in, that this thing is just going places?
I guess so. At that point, Brad and Robert had done such a brilliant job of really setting everything up that it was very easy to just pick up where they had left off. And this is one thing I said about I realized after the 4th season of SG1 is that once you establish that mythology and those, get that first season or two under your belt, then there are so many stories you can go back to and so much backstory that you can mine. So really, we just kind of hit the ground running.
Legit. I just got a message from Paul McGillion. He says he sent you a question.
Oh, okay. Is it a Carson Beckett question?
I hope so. We're gonna have to wait and see. Moderators, make sure that we find that one. I hope that that's in here somewhere. Summer says, unfortunately, something. Anyway, too low volume. So we're still having some kind of a volume issue. I'm lowering my volume on my end to see if fans can, if we can get them to raise their volume, because I've maximized it on your side.
Okay, I've raised it a bit on my side, so I'll see if that helps at all.
Let's see. Yeah, okay. We're just gonna have to do the best that we can. All right. Amanda Tapping joined this season.
Yes.
So tell us about the process that you recall of bringing her on board.
Yeah, to be honest with you, there were a couple of ways we could have gone, but I thought the one that made the most sense was to bring Carter on board, and hopefully some rare SG1 fans that hadn't checked out Atlantis yet. And so we approached Amanda, and she obviously loved the idea, and we wrote her in, and it was just kind of a lot of fun to, we've done crossovers before, but it was a first time, obviously we'd established an SG1 regular in our Atlantis universe. So, in that respect, it was very exciting, felt very fresh, and it opened up a host of possibilities for us.
But was there some concern that at the time, if I'm not mistaken, I'm recalling that there was some concern that SG1 was going to steal Atlantis's thunder, or that the reason that they're doing this is because Atlantis is struggling or something. I remember at the time seeing a lot of that and thinking, this is just to further the connection.
I would ask concern from who?
Right.
Secondly, the ratings were strong for both shows. So, that really wasn't, obviously a reason. And then in terms of sort of, we were cognizant of the fact that, the Carter character is almost kind of, bigger than life. And so she really stepped into the role of the project overseer. So, in retrospect, I think we were pretty mindful of bringing this element of SG1 into Atlantis, but not having it overpower or overshadow Atlantis. And one of the ways we did that was just to, make Carter's role on Atlantis very, specific. And so she didn't really get the chance to go off-world because, just from the leadership standpoint, it didn't really make sense. But in retrospect, I think it would have been a lot of fun if we'd actually taken her off-world more.
Yeah, I think that
way to do it.
That was one of the, I think, concerns that Tori Higginson has illustrated, that there wasn't a great deal of, if she had second billing, there wasn't a great deal for her to do, unless she was off-world a part of that team. And I remember seeing more episodes that were geared toward her doing that. But Carter was much more of I think, played that more administrative role, and it felt to me like it was, this is not the Samantha Carter SG1 on Atlantis show. This is still very much the Atlantis people, and Carter is like an added treat for the fans, and that's what I walked away with.
Yeah. for instance, if Carter would have taken over command of the SGC, she wouldn't have been going off-world, and she would have essentially served the same purpose from sort of a in-story practical standpoint, but also from a, in a creative standpoint, wouldn't really make sense. Like, Hammond going off-world, that rarely happened. Whereas with Weir, she was a diplomat by training, so occasionally it would make sense for her to go off-world in dealing with, in negotiations or the like.
Exactly. All right. So some of your favorite episodes for this season, what would you have to say stands out for you? This pivotal year for you guys. You're now executive producers of the show. Your hands are firmly on the steering wheel.
I'm going to have to bring up to see which episodes were specifically season 4 episodes.
Gate World cheat sheet.
Yeah. Here we go. Or my trusty IMDb here.
Joe, is this the first time you've ever used this particular microphone?
No.
Really? Okay.
Strange. Hang on, let me. I've done the old plug it, unplug it, and plug it back in. How's that?
Same thing, but it's all good. And people are still getting complaints. They're just gonna have to get over it. All right.
Sorry, guys. Well, season 4. Let's see.
Yes.
We started with the Adrift Lifeline.
Yes.
That was great fun. I mean, we shot that. I think this was the year. No. I remember actually uploading a video. If you fans follow me on Twitter, look for it, where we do a kind of behind the scenes on the kind of the space jump with Joe and David Nickel.
Yes.
Yeah, and this was provided to us by our whiz visual effects supervisor, Mark Savella, who's always fantastic. And I remember we shot that on our standing sets, and used green screen, and it was an epic 2-parter. And then, just off the top of my head, I mean, I can go through them all. There's Reunion was fun because it was actually the first of the unplanned 2-parter. Remember, Jason came into my office, and as he would often do, he'd basically pitch out ideas, and actually really the only member of the cast who would actually come by and say, hey, how about this type of story or that type of story. And so this episode came about as a result of his gentle prodding.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
That Doppelganger, a Robert Cooper idea.
Yeah. The thing I remember most about this episode is there is a sequence where we used a ratchet on Joe, where he was on one of the upper, he was in the gate room.
Yeah.
And I guess he gets pushed or something.
Yes.
And he flies through the rail, and it's a ratchet pull where essentially he's wearing a vest underneath his wardrobe, and somebody says 3, 2, 1, go, and he is yanked through the railing. And I think it was the first time we tried it, and they hooked him up and they counted down 3, 2, 1, go, and he didn't go. And so he relaxed, and then at that point it just engaged and basically pulled him out of scene. And that look of surprise on Joe's face just before he went was pretty priceless.
Wow. It just was a delay.
Yeah. It was just funny because he was ready for it, he was braced, and then it didn't happen, and he relaxed, and that's when it happened. Jeez.
I mean, part of me would be like, okay, do I have an enemy on the production? Is someone messing with me here?
Just going through this kind of just preliminary thoughts on all these episodes, but Travelers was interesting because I remember we were walking the set of Travelers, the spaceship set, and I was thinking at the time I was developing Dark Matter, which was basically it was 2007. So it was like 6 years until I actually got
Correct.
Dark Matter to air. And I remember Paul and I were walking the halls of the ship and saying, wow, you know what? If, this is the last season of Atlantis, we should save this Traveler set and we could roll right into Dark Matter. And this could be, the Dark Matter ship. Of course, we ended up getting picked up and then doing Stargate Universe. So the set was long gone by then. But that is a standout memory of Travelers.
There are definitely similarities, I think, with the Traveler design and your ship from Dark Matter for sure. It's the Travelers. I think were a cool take because it kind of took us back to a group of aliens that. Where do they stand with us? We don't really know. And so we have to be careful because they could go basically either way,
Yeah.
And they come in handy later on in the season.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then Tabula Rasa was Alan McCullough's Ode to Memento, which was a lot of fun. But sadly, I don't remember that much about the production of this particular episode. But I do remember the next one, Missing.
Yes.
Where it was great. It was Jewel and Rachel, and they were out in the forest. And I remember we ended up building that rope bridge.
Yes.
We built that for the episode, and it was like a tremendous cost because not so much because it was an expensive build, but because we couldn't risk anyone happening across it and trying to cross it. So we had to actually hire a guard when we were not shooting, like a security guard, to, stay on duty morning and night and ensure that no one attempt to cross it before, we eventually take it down. So, that is one thing I remember about the episode. The other one is there's a moment where Rachel or Teyla spears a creature, like a squid-like creature.
Correct.
That ends up eating, and for some reason in the script it was described as the space gopher, and James Robbins did a brilliant concept art of a space gopher, and it essentially looked like a gopher with luminescent eyes, and I have the concept art somewhere. When eventually I get through the, I'm basically posting concept art from every season of the show, and right now I'm working my way up through SG1. I think I'm in season 6 or finishing up season 6. But when you get to Atlantis, season 4, watch out for that space gopher. And then another thing I remember about this episode was that sequence where Keller is reluctant to cross the bridge because she has a fear of heights, and Teyla's like getting frustrated with her and is like, "Come on!" And Teyla, just kind of barrels through. Whereas in reality, it was the opposite.
Really?
Absolutely fine getting on that bridge and crossing. Whereas Rachel, much like myself, didn't want to be anywhere near that bridge.
I didn't know the story about you guys having to hire security for that. That was absolute. Yeah. That would have been absolutely crazy.
Yes. We only realized it after the fact. I was like,
man. All right. Okay. So yes, and then we had the Seer.
Yes. Again, that was one I don't recall.
This is a great episode where we had it was an Alan McCullough story directed by Andy Makita, where Davos, played by Martin Jarvis, gives people a glimpse of a possible future.
Right.
You're doing some foreshadowing for later in the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just remember the performances in that episode were excellent.
And then we have Miller's Crossing, which is the return of Hewlett's sister, Jeannie.
Yes. And Martin's quest for a title for the episode was a bit of a reach, but
He started a
it's kind of
trend.
fun episode. Yeah, I mean, Martin was always really good at those episodes that got into kind of like the heart of the character, especially the McKay character. I mean, you could tell he truly loved writing for that character, and this one is a real standout.
Joe, do you mind if we pause for about 1 minute? I think I may have a solution to the audio problem.
Sure.
I'll be right back with you. Thank you, folks. I'll be right back. All right. One more time for me, Sir Joe. Let's see. USB audio. Okay.
The speaker setting?
Yep, this was all on me. All right, Joe, one more time. Can you hear me?
How's that? Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you?
Perfect.
Okay, guys. I apologize for all that. But am I sounding okay too?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. I like the ears.
Thank you. Thank you. These were a present from my wife.
Hey, there we go. They add character.
Thank you.
Can you do me a favor and switch back to the other ones though, because I really think that it was me.
Oh, okay. Hang on.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. We've never had a mid-show interruption quite like this one before.
How's this?
There we go.
Perfect.
It was
okay.
My I have a portable USB, and the port just stopped working.
Oh.
So, Joe, you have always been kind of my guinea pig. My poor friend, you suffer through all of the show's changes. So
I have to say, Akemi is disappointed that I'm not going with the cat ears.
Well, you know what? We've got a good screenshot of it. So
Okay. All right.
Okay. Sorry for that, everybody. Now,
So
yes.
everybody was able to hear everything, though.
Yes, yes,
Should
we
I
were,
reiterate
but no, I mean, we're just going to go ahead and proceed. It's just not going to be as soft for them as before. So for those who have the audio podcast version to listen to, when all is said and done, they'll have the benefit of it all being leveled out.
Excellent. Okay.
Mortal Coil and All My Sins Remembered. I loved these episodes.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, because this one was, this Mortal Coil was probably the hardest episode I've ever written.
How
it
so?
Went through, it just, there are just certain episodes that it just wasn't working for the rest of the writing staff. And I went through, I think, I want to say like 5 or 6 different drafts on this script. And I remember Carol Binder coming into my office and saying, it's a little rough, still a little rough. And I'd be like, okay. And then I'd go back to the drawing board. And I think this was the script that kind of encapsulated sort of, for me, my approach to writing. When sort of Paul just said, he's like, look, the issue, the biggest note that you get is the fact that you give the audience too much credit. Like, I assume they will be able to read into things that, I, as a writer, find obvious, but Paul would argue is an average viewer would not be obvious. So, that was something I had to be mindful of in the rewrites and in subsequent scripts.
I would always think that, that we could spend an episode on just talking about in itself for an hour, is always a dance between what's too obscure and what's too on the nose.
Yeah.
And there is a certain amount of, I would think, you have to be aware to a certain degree of what kind of audience is watching, and how it's not just intelligent, but attentive you expect them to be. Is this a show? Are you creating a show where you can watch it and wash the dishes? Which you're not really watching it, I would argue.
Well, it's funny because, I've been told that a lot of popular shows are popular because of that, because you can be doing something else. You can be talking to your friends, you can be washing dishes, you can be playing a video game, it'll be on in the background, and you'll be able to follow along.
You're not actually needing to pay attention.
Yes, yeah.
That's not entertainment. That's background noise.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah. That sounds like my folks. They always, and you're watching, Mom and Dad. Mm-hmm. You always have to have a TV on in the room.
I mean, to be fair, it's not like I'm writing Tenet every episode. Right? So it's
exactly
not
right.
In my mind, it's not that difficult to follow. But point taken.
But it is of the same expectation of quality on a TV budget.
Yeah.
I'm not turning in expecting to do backflips with my brain, but at the same time, I'm expecting to have my presuppositions challenged. And that's, I think, what Stargate did well. And I think this Mortal Coil is a fine example of it. And the fact that you had trouble cracking it, and it's still turning out solid, in my opinion. Even Darren rates it here 3 out of 4, which is good. Is an example that, you were on the right track.
Well, thank you. After all these years, I feel vindicated.
It was a great episode because it brought back Weir, someone whom we lost earlier in the season. Great final scenes with David Ogden Stiers, with Tori. And we think that that's it, but it's not. Right. And I have to share a personal anecdote about Be All My Sins Remembered, which is one of my favorite Atlantis episodes for many reasons. Be All My Sins aired January the 4th, 2008, when the first announcement for Stargate Worlds, the MMO, came out on television. The Stargate Worlds had been announced before, but this was really the first shot at seeing a teaser trailer for the game. The teaser trailer was called Water. This was something that me and my team at Cheyenne were part of in the marketing division, and it aired in a commercial break during Be All My Sins Remembered. And I had half of probably a quarter of the personnel working on the game over at my house. We're all watching Be All My Sins Remembered. The trailer for Water comes on. Throughout our history, mankind has always crossed great expanses on missions of discovery. And we're all like, oh, that was amazing. That was amazing. Now back to the episode. And Weir is revealed at the end. And the entire room of like 30 people just went quiet. And we all looked at one another going, What the? That was so... My hairs are standing on end right now just thinking about it. It was one of those, like, slap across your faces. What did we just see? What are the expectations being set up for the future? And it was just it could have been a series finale in terms of its scope, in terms of everything coming together, the Travelers, the Wraith, everyone going to take down this threat to the Pegasus Galaxy. It's a great episode of television.
Thank you. Yeah, it was one thing that I love doing is subverting audience expectations, which is something you discussed, which I really set out to do a lot of in Dark Matter, and two, setting up and paying off a good cliffhanger ending that hopefully gets paid off down the line. I just love a cliffhanger ending, much to the consternation of many a fan.
Michelle Morgan was introduced in this episode as Fran, the friendly replicator android.
Who's amazing.
Could have been a one-off. It's a very small part. It got everyone talking about it because what are the implications of this? We're creating what is clearly a sentient being who is clearly okay with being a bomb. She's just fulfilling her purpose, but it left a door open to the future, which we exploit later on in season 5 using her template to bring back Weir. Tell us a little about Fran. Was it Martin Garrow's idea for Fran? Was it the whole writer's room? Who really brought that together?
To be honest with you, I don't recall.
Okay.
I don't recall.
Okay.
The specifics of who came up with the Fran character.
Okay. But we get into what, in my opinion, is one of the more controversial aspects of the season. And I had alluded to this before. When the episode aired and Gateworld was doing retrospectives, it was one of those things where we always like to look at the moral angle of every episode. Because we think that's one of the things that Stargate does so well. And we have this threat by a sentient race of beings created by the Ancients to defeat the Wraith. And they are gunning for us. After what happened with them in the season 3 finale when we did a preemptive strike and wiped out their military bases, they clearly have wrath and want to take us down. So we all get together and eliminate this threat. And I remember thinking and looking at the planet as it's being destroyed. There are trees down there. You could imagine that there are parks down there. This is not just a civilization of war machines. This is a civilization of potentially, some of whom could potentially be peaceful beings, all of whom appear to be leading some kind of lives in addition to their combined goal. What is your to bring it down to it? What is your thoughts on terminating a civilization? Was that a consideration in the writers' room? It's
I mean, it's something we deal with a couple of episodes later. This kind of moral ambiguity, the sacrifices you make for the greater good, and I mean, for instance, this was one. There's another one we can talk about in a later episode where Sheppard, is it this season?
Are you referring to Outcast?
Yeah, Outcast.
Yeah.
Outcast?
Yeah, that comes up in a few episodes.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were very mindful of that, and I always kind of like those dilemmas because it's easy to say, well, you wouldn't do it, and yet if you don't do it, what kind of a price do you pay further on down the line?
It's fair because we've at the end of the day, it's either them or us. And in this case, the us is the freaking rest of the galaxy because the replicators are abiding their time, and who knows what they're going to do. So it was always a difficult call, but I mean, and at the end of the day, I think Darren and I had agreed, the right decision was made. But what are the implications of that when you cross that line?
Yeah. And is it next season where some of those decisions come back to haunt us? And, yeah. But we'll talk.
We'll talk about that then.
Yeah.
Spoils of War. Another return of. Before I get to that, we haven't discussed Michael Beach. Bringing him on as Abraham Ellis, captain of the Apollo. We didn't discuss Michael last season.
He is a fantastic actor. Just, wonderful.
He's cool.
He does. Yeah.
And I wish that there had been more for him to do. Him and Mitch Pileggi, Stephen Caldwell. They're kind of the truck drivers for the show. They bring the supplies. They occasionally assist in multi-pronged attacks on targets. I just really wish that there had been kind of a Midway kind of episode, if you will, for the captains of these ships, like Teal'c and Ronan kind of had in Midway.
Yeah, I mean, you always look back and think, this character we should have used more, and this character we should have brought back. But when you're kind of in the thick of it and spinning stories, it often is such a whirl that you're just, the production machine eats up those scripts, those like 7 or 8 scripts that you bank before the start of the season. Suddenly they're gone, and you're going to be heading into production in a couple of weeks, and you desperately need a script, and so that. Often you don't have the luxury to basically sit back and sort of take an overview of sort of what's working this season, who's really popping. Often by the time you see the dailies and you see who's popping or what's really working, you're already 6 or 7 episodes down the line in terms of scripting.
Complete right turn. At what point in the season did Rachel have her conversation with you about her pregnancy? Tell us about when you found out and the decisions that you guys made.
Well, can we talk about that when we get to quarantine? Or shall we just talk about quarantine?
Yes.
Okay, so quarantine, McKay is developing his relationship with Katie Brown.
Correct.
And in the writer's room, we were discussing the possibility of actually making her pregnant, and then making Rodney a father, and all the kind of rich story and humor story opportunities that would provide. And we were going to go down that road until we found out that Rachel was pregnant. And then we had to switch things up a bit, obviously.
So it was during quarantine that this was going on?
I don't think we had decided to sort of say the character was pregnant in this episode. I think we were discussing it in this episode for a future episode. And then, I think it was around, at this point that that Rachel let us know, and so basically we had to kind of shift.
Well, because at the end of Missing, which is earlier on in the season, the end of that episode, Keller already knows that she's pregnant.
Okay, so then I guess it had to be earlier then.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
by the time we had, while we were writing the scripts, those first, I don't know what episode is it. Those early scripts were written well before we went to camera, and well before we found out about Rachel. But the plan was to sort of make Rodney a father, and we thought, wow, that would be kind of fun, and having to deal with, saving the galaxy while at the same time, making sure he had time to spend with his son or daughter. It's funny how sometimes, things just kind of, switch up on you.
That would have definitely been interesting to see that kind of character switch gears and rise to the occasion, of being not only Mr. Fantastic in the rest of the galaxy, but also in terms of his technical wizardry, but also having to be, Mr. Mom at the same time.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Legit.
Interesting way to go. Yeah.
Absolutely. Harmony.
Harmony. This one takes me back.
Oh, yes.
A Will Waring directed episode. And I remember I was in the room with Martin and Carl, and we broke this story, and it was so much fun. And we cast the best actress we could possibly cast for the role, Jodelle Ferland, 13-year-old Jodelle Ferland as Princess Harmony. And as I'm fond of telling everyone, when we were on on location shooting, I mean, her mother Val was there, and I would talk to Val while they would shoot the scenes, and Jodelle knew all of her lines. Like, she was perfect, just perfect. Not only knew her lines, but just delivered them to perfection. And then when David or Joe would kind of flub a line or would hesitate, she would prompt them because she knew their lines as well.
Jeez.
And so many, many years later, when we were casting Dark Matter, I was like, I know who 5 has to be. It has to be Jodelle Ferland. And she was the perfect 5.
Wow. It's those little things. You always want to cast someone who you know can do the job, and it's just the right person at the right time comes in and makes it happen.
Yeah.
Wow.
She was terrific.
I like that episode. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that we were looking to bring her back in season 5, but we just couldn't find the story for the right story.
I love that her character, while it sometimes does go in expected ways, she also goes against type by not being meek and helpless. Right. With her knife. She knows she and that knife, man. It was a great character for sure. Yeah. And I love the ending with the painting of her depiction of the victory. We sold that at PropWorks, and it did pretty well, if I recall.
Oh, yeah? How much do you remember? How much?
Yeah, hang on. Harmony's victory painting, PropWorks. How much did it go for? Live Auctioneers is having problems. So never mind. Oh, wow. Okay. It was thousands.
Thousands. Wow.
I'm pretty positive. See the sold price. Here we go. Let me have a look here. For those who are wanting to know, let me see. Harmony's victory painting sold for $4,500.
Wow.
Estimate was between $800 and $1,200.
Wow.
I mean, show fans over here.
Yeah. Amazing.
Production, a painting of Harmony's interpretation of her victory in the Atlantis Season 4 episode Harmony features Rodney McKay heroically fighting for the young princess while John Sheppard cowers in fear.
Yeah. I can tell you, Joe did not love the ending of that episode.
I imagine not. I mean, it was a hit to his masculinity.
It's a good fun, but I mean, it was all in good fun and just a total reversal of what we had set up and played throughout the episode. I thought it was
well, I mean, Joe himself has always said that he kind of looked at Sheppard in many ways as Kirk and wanted to kind of fuel that energy. And I gotta say, it's kind of funny watching him come down a peg in the end of that episode. But it's all, I think it humanizes the character a little bit more because
I agree.
This is something he's got to put up with, For McKay is his Spock, and sometimes Spock is going to draw more audience members on certain episodes than Shatner will. Yeah. So, Outcast.
Yes. So this was the episode we were talking about.
Yes.
We face a moral quandary, and Sheppard makes a decision to feed this individual to the Wraith.
I think that's Miller's Crossing.
Oh, sorry. Oh.
Yeah, you want to go back to Miller's Crossing for a minute? Because Stephen Culp.
Yeah. All right. Yes. Okay, yes.
Hey, so, you're all good, dude. I don't know how you're keeping all this straight anyway.
Yeah. So again, I mean, back to Miller's Crossing, we were faced with our character making a difficult decision. And I remember after the episode aired, the message boards were buzzing. They were on fire. A lot of people did not like John's decision. Others you know, defended him. It was just, you know, I like those moments that engender a lot of discussion.
Mm-hmm. Well, they force us to put ourselves in that situation.
Yeah.
Your own daughter, you know, how far are you willing to sacrifice to save your own child? And that's largely what Sheppard is pushing here, because he doesn't want the kid to suffer, you know, and this information needs to come out. And Chris Heyerdahl as Todd wants to be fed.
Yep.
So it's just crazy. One of my favorite lines from Atlantis is in Outcast, because Sunday had teed up the fact that Sheppard had been divorced. Mm-hmm. And this is now at his father's wake, and he's with Ronan. Ronan is there for emotional support. Yeah. And Sheppard says, so, you know, I told you how I was married, right? And Ronan says, yeah, why? He says, because here she comes. And that was a great little aside into the more personal life of Sheppard on Earth. We didn't get a ton of that. And we find out, you know, they're on, even though they don't really have a chance to see each other a lot, they are on speaking terms. They are civil. And there is a little spark of, there's something still there. You know, it's just that things have led a different way.
Yeah, I like this episode exactly for that. The fact that we shed a little light on Sheppard's backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever we get to do that, like for any character, I always find it really interesting. And so his ex-wife was played by, was it Carrie Wurr?
Very good.
Yes.
Gold star.
Yeah, and Joe actually is a friend of hers, which made kind of the chemistry on,
mm-hmm.
you know, on screen's chemistry all that more palpable. They were very comfortable with each other, which was nice.
Absolutely. And this episode featured Emma Lahana as Ava Dixon, who at the end we discover is a human form replicator who was mm-hmm. born on Earth. Another one of those great twists where
mm-hmm.
you have her kind of in her own isolated program at the end, continuing to exist and not aware that, you know, she's inside an artificial reality.
Yep.
You have to wonder, are we?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, according to a recent article I read, we are, it turns out. So
the universe is pixelated.
Yeah, and basically I said, if that's the case, I feel I am long overdue for a level up.
Yeah, or some kind of, I need some kind of controls to give me some extra lives or something.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still stuck on level 12. Back and forth.
Trio.
Yes.
Now, this was an interesting one. Martin Garrow told me that this was intended to be a budget-saving episode for the season.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, Martin got a hold of the episode is what happened. He was like, it's going to be a locked, you know, like kind of one of those locked room episodes. And then the locked room, it ended up being this massive build on a gimbal that we could, you know, tilt. So it wasn't a small episode at all. The thing I remember of this episode is we weren't sure what we wanted to do. If it would basically be, one version would have McKay trapped with Keller, another version had McKay trapped with Carter, and then a third version had McKay trapped with both of them. And I remember we were going back and forth, and I was like, let's bring this to a vote. And so basically, Survivor style, we all basically wrote our choices on a piece of paper and then put them in a box. And then Martin pulled them out of the box, would read them, and he kept score on the whiteboard. And that's how we got Trio.
So the majority of people in the room decided that for the three of them?
Yes.
So, but there were dissenters?
I believe there were,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's funny because it's McKay stuck with two beautiful, intelligent women, and, you know, who are really his intellectual equals in their fields of expertise. And it's the sequence of, you know, don't you know the knife trick to get free beer, you know, and how they try to get themselves out of the situation that they're in, basically realizing that no one is going to come to help them. These kids have basically abandoned them for all intents and purposes, if I remember correctly. Was a pleasure to watch, but, you know, it's one of those where it's like, when Martin told me about it, I was like, wow, I can see where, that's because his interpretation of it was it always it became over budget during the shoot.
Yeah. Well, it became over budget in prep when you had to build this gimbal standing set.
Exactly. This episode features a deleted scene that fans have been talking about for years. Mm-hmm. And this, can you speak a little bit to this scene for the shippers in the audience?
I don't recall the details, but it was a reference I think Carter makes to
being unavailable.
Jack, yeah. When they're talking about relationship and being unavailable, and I mean, I don't know how specific we were. We actually probably were not very specific, but the suggestion was that she was with Jack.
Yeah, he works in Washington, I think was the line, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So it was.
I don't know why we lost that. If it was lost for time or, I don't recall.
It was one of those, I think, great nods where, in hindsight, to the shippers out there, which I occasionally am one. I still teeter to this day. It would have been like, oh, that would have been good.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. We have Midway.
Oh, fan favorite.
One of mine as well. A Carl Binder extravaganza.
Yes. Another Carl Binder extravaganza. A ghostless Carl Binder extravaganza. He used to sort of joke about the fact that he would often write the ghost episodes. But yeah, I mean, this is a huge episode, a fan favorite. Seeks to answer the question, who would win in a fight, Teal'c or Ronan? And, they go at it for a while. And we never really found out.
No, they would have kept on going for a while. What was a nugget that would have started this story? Was that it? Who would picture this, guys? Who would win a fight, Teal'c or Ronan?
I think we just wanted to blow up the Great Gate Bridge. That was the seed for this story.
It's too convenient. We've got to let it go.
Yeah.
There's a 24-hour holding period. That's too much. Yeah, that's not enough. We've got to blow up the space station.
Yeah.
Who was it who introduced Midway to begin with? The idea? Was that a Brad and Rob thing?
It was probably a Brad and Rob thing.
Okay. Yeah. And blow it to hell.
I pitched out the idea of the Gate networks, and then Brad was like, well, that doesn't really work because they can't connect. He's like, unless we create a Midway station. So I think it was actually Brad. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. The networks have to join somewhere in the middle. The idea was always cool, but always at the other end, I was like, how easy is it for our heroes now to get from point A to point B? And should we, take them down a peg or two? It goes back to like Atlantis with its power supply. At what level of power is Atlantis? Throughout the course of the show, in the back of your brain, you kind of have to have a running tally because it influences the types of stories that are told.
Also, a great spin-off idea, the space station, make it a lot bigger, and it becomes kind of a way station for travelers.
Absolutely. Stargate Atlantis, Deep Space, or Stargate Deep Space Nine, or its equivalent.
Yeah.
So and it was great having Christopher back in that episode.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I remember them practicing their stick fighting on outside, and I think I got a whole bunch of photos of them just kind of practicing the choreography. Very committed, both of those guys.
It was a whole sequence, and it definitely paid off. Everyone, I can't think of anyone who throws any shadow at Midway. It's a tight episode. The Kindred 1 and 2.
Yes, the return of Carson Beckett. I remember speaking to Paul. Was at the end of season. Carson was killed off in season 3?
Carson was killed off in season 3 on Sunday.
Yeah. I remember being at the wrap party and telling him, okay, this is how I want to bring your character back. And then we finally got the opportunity, and I was like, oh, it's going to blow the fans away. And then, there's that infamous sci-fi promo, next week on.
Oh my gosh.
And they're like, you won't believe the last 5 minutes. And then it shows Carson there, and going, what took you so long? And it's like, well, yeah, I'm sure they'll believe the 5 minutes now because you just showed it to them. I could not believe that they spoiled that for the fans.
I couldn't believe it either in hindsight, because it's like, this was one of those big buildups, and you get to the episode and it's like, oh, Sci-Fi didn't just preview it; they completely blew it.
Yes, they completely blew it, and so all the Carson Beckett fans were tuning in and were like, oh, okay, Carson's coming back this episode. When is he coming back? When is he coming back? And so instead of being delightfully surprised in those last closing moments and looking forward to the next episode, they were probably frustrated as they waited for Carson to show up. And then when he finally shows up, rather than being like, oh, great, it's more like, finally.
Jeez. It's, I equate it to Luke's appearance at the end of Star Wars 7. Because, we've been told that Mark Hamill's is... Oh, you don't watch Star Wars. That's right.
But I'll take your word for it.
Well, it had... we know that Mark Hamill is in the... what was it? What was that? The Force Awakens. But he's in the last scene. And it's like... I guess he's in the credits. Yeah, because he's technically there. But, I mean, it was one of those situations. And do you think that this was because the advertising team who was putting together the promos really wanted a win with this episode, and like, oh, we want audiences to tune in, so let's go ahead and use this?
I'm sure.
Okay, it wasn't just stupidity. That it was a targeted approach.
Well, it was intentional, yes.
Right.
Yeah. Although it's funny because I've since gone on YouTube, and the promo has been altered.
You're kidding.
No.
Wow. Okay, then.
So I cannot find that original promo anymore.
Well, so Trio had a Nielsen 1.1, Midway had a 1.3, the Kindred had a 1.2, and the Kindred Part 2 had a 1.3. So, I mean, all things being equal, it didn't necessarily cause anything to explode, but at the same time, it was pretty consistent.
Yeah. I mean, but it's the same way with, for instance, stunt casting, where a lot of the times the network will be like, you got to get a stunt cast. This will be like a big episode because you're going to have so-and-so making an appearance. And so we would pay the extra money to get a guest star, and then it would have like really no effect on the ratings whatsoever.
Got it. Wow. What a juggling act to create a TV show. Ugh. And working in Teyla's pregnancy with Michael, Connor Trenier is back. We haven't talked about Michael yet this season.
Yeah. One of my favorite Atlantis villain, a complex character. And I mean, here's sort of another reason. I mean, I think, Rachel's pregnancy allowed us to create a storyline that obviously we wouldn't have pursued.
Correct.
If the actress hadn't been pregnant, and yet it kind of opened the door to this really interesting relationship between Teyla and Michael.
Yeah, a sick one for sure. Yeah. And it's one of those where I think a lot of it was just he, like accusing the rest of Atlantis, particularly focuses his energy on her in forcing him to be what he was, because, they needed a weapon against the Wraith. And now she is bringing life to something that she's going to care about, and now he's going to turn around and take it away from her. It's pretty darn insidious.
Yes.
So by this episode, he's perfected his genome, or however you want to call it, so that he's no longer feeding on other human beings. He is genuinely his own kind of unique thing, whatever that is. It was I still wish that we had seen that character more. I think that we could have done more with him than having one or two appearances a season.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, I guess that's another one of those hindsight things.
Yes, in hindsight, it's one of those hindsight things.
The Last Man.
Oh, yeah.
Another fan favorite.
Yes.
Old Rodney.
Yes.
Sheppard takes a wrong turn at the Stargate during a solar flare and gets thrown, I think 48,000 years into the future, if I'm not mistaken. It was a great what if.
Yeah, I love those types of episodes. In general, I love time travel, but I love those road not taken episodes where, you jump ahead and you see how it all turned out.
Mm-hmm. And we get that through Rodney's backstory. I was watching this episode thinking, and this was just my assumption going into it, that there were sleeper agents inside of Atlantis, of Michael's race, and he would be running and gunning back to that Stargate. Like, they had just completely taken over the galaxy or the universe, and they were all that was left. But instead, it's a quiet, dismal future.
Yeah. In fact, actually, what you're pitching out was sort of what I had kind of wanted to do for our season 6 two-parter.
Oh.
Which we never got to do. But in any case, a conversation for another time.
Okay.
But I just remember this episode just filling the corridors with sand. So much sand.
Yes.
And then during that windstorm or that sandstorm, and I have some behind-the-scenes videos I can sort of dig up of Joe with the handkerchief over his face and fighting through the sandstorm. And that sand was made up of oatmeal. It was like a mix of oatmeal and something else, some other grain.
Okay. Yeah. A nice handy substitute on short notice.
Yes.
We're going to have some kind of show and tell at some point here in the future of some of that content of yours. I'd love to show it to some people because there's so much good behind the scenes stuff that you shot.
If I can find it, yes.
Well, if you want to send it all to me, I'd be happy to catalog it for you.
Well, I don't even know where it is.
That's the thing. I understand. I get it. This was a great season. Really solid series of episodes. Again, proved that the show really had come into its own. First season without SG-1 being shot next door, except for the two feature films.
Yep.
So. Yeah, it's solid. So Paul just wrote me. He said Joe answered the question about his impeccable style during COVID.
Yeah, my impeccable style during COVID. I basically answered him.
Oh.
And I told him that I'm able to maintain my impeccable style because I keep a framed photo of the actor who played Carson Beckett always within my eye line. And so basically, And I know sort of, this is what I aspire to.
Paul is so suave.
He is suave.
He is.
As Akemi says, hansamu in Japanese.
That's the equivalent?
Yes. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Let's get to some questions.
All right.
Okay. Tiptronic SS. I would like to hear more ideas from Joe about possible SGU directions in his creative mind.
Oh, I mean,
man, that's a whole.
In terms of SGU, unlike Stargate Atlantis, we didn't really sit down and we didn't have the opportunity to sort of beat out stories for a third season. If you check my blog, there, I pitched out a couple of ideas that we could have gone with in terms of how we would have addressed that jump, the time span between galaxies.
Yes.
But in terms of sort of, specific stories, we didn't really beat out anything beyond the ending that Brad had in his mind. The message in the
background.
Radiation. Yeah.
And so your blog, again, josephmallozzi.wordpress.com. Am I right?
Or I think it may just be josephmallozzi.com. Let me see. Yeah.
I me-seed you before you me-seed. Yes, my gal is slowing down. Okay. Yes. Oh, I'll be joining host David Reed. Hey, there we go. josephmallozzi.com, folks. Yes, thank you.
You've got to catch up on the blog.
I do. Absolutely, I do. Mm-hmm. Dude, there's so much reading I'm behind on. Mm-hmm. Teresa MC. Joe, was Technician Chuck ever given a last name? He was given a first name by accident.
No, he was never given a last name. Okay.
It's one of the things that Tori did before she left at the end of season 3. It was she just said, yes, Chuck. I don't think that was in the script. If I'm
sorry, you cut out there for a second.
So one of the things that Tori did at the end of season 3 was mention Chuck's last name, and it happened to be the same name of the actor because he does look like a Chuck.
Yeah, he does. He does.
One of the things that I wanted to get back to was Tori's weird arc in season 4, and I want to bring up season 5, the not returning next season, but bringing her back for the 2-parter in the middle of the year. Was that always the plan from the get-go, or was it one of those things where you reached out to her and said, "Hey, we have this idea. Would you like to come back?" Was she under contract for
no,
X number of episodes?
Contract. No,
Okay.
she wasn't under contract, so she was free to come and go as she pleased. And then I think ultimately she decided not to come back, and so that kind of required us to change things up.
Got it.
In the subsequent episode. Although, like, in my mind, I always imagined. I mean, even though everyone assumed Weir was dead, in my mind she was not dead. But that's a conversation for season 5.
And you've written material to that
yes,
end.
Yes.
So
that's how I imagined we would ultimately find her.
Absolutely. That was. It was such a season 5. I'll leave it there.
Yeah,
Rocket Kazan. I'd like to know if there were plans to show a little bit more backstory for Lorne, or if he was mainly there so he could get knocked out instead of one of the main team.
No, I mean, I love the Lorne character.
Cavan was great.
Yes, Cavan was always fantastic. But no, there were no plans to sort of explore his backstory.
All right. Dan Ben, any favorite TV promos or DVD trailers that were made for the shows? Well, I think we discussed one of those.
The one I just mentioned,
right?
Infamous. One curse back in SG1. I think we discussed that one already. Where
yes,
you find out that Sarah is the Goa'uld at the end of the episode, and yet in the promo you see her use the hand device, so you automatically realize that she's the Goa'uld, and you're just waiting for that turn to happen. So those two promos really stand out for me. The
promos on Showtime, they must have been made. I remember being frustrated because the promos in Showtime were relating content that was not completed. Like, I remember for Serpent Song, they had Apophis talking, and he was just talking in his regular voice. The flange hadn't even been added yet.
Yes. And he was speaking with Peter's kind of Jamaican accent.
Right, exactly. You will die with me. And it's like, why? I'm guessing it's just a timing thing. At what point they got footage?
That was strange. I remember kind of Brad... not flipping out, but just wondering what the hell's going on.
It's not done. The content that they're using is not fully whatever. It was just a curious note that I had.
Yeah.
Jonas, what happened to humanity 48,000 years into the future, you think?
What do you think will happen?
What happened? So Sheppard's in the Pegasus Galaxy in Atlantis. Yeah. What do you think happened to humanity?
Oh, they're long gone. Oh,
wow.
Long gone. Oh, yeah.
Ascended, sadly, hopefully, a few of them?
Sadly, no.
Iratus Wraith. Joe, if the ratings were so strong, why did the show come to an end? That's a complicated answer.
Atlantis. This is a question I've always posed because, I got the sense that the network would have been fine with the 6th season. In my mind, and the studio as well. Although essentially it's a lot of diminishing returns for the studio. But from what I understood, there were reasons for them to do a 6th season, and I think the biggest reason in my mind was that it would allow us to bring in this new show, sort of like SG1 and Atlantis. SG1 passed the torch to Atlantis by doing that sort of Friday double feature. I, in my mind, assumed we'd be doing the same with Atlantis. Atlantis is the first season of Universe. So I was surprised and disappointed to learn that we were not.
Yeah, Hewlett was convinced that there was going to be a season 6, and when he found, because the ratings were strong and everything else was going, and he was blindsided when the announcement came that Atlantis was canceled.
As well was I. We had written up kind of those one sentence with those one-word episode titles or placeholder titles for season 6, and the script that Paul and I had written for Stargate Extinction.
Yes.
I remember Rob was pitching it out. He's like, what you should do is, when you write that script, you should shoot it at the end of the season so that, if the show gets picked up, it becomes your opening two-parter. And if it doesn't, it becomes a standalone movie.
Right.
And we just never got the approval from MGM to do it. And sadly the show got canceled, and that was that.
Understood. Victoria T, a statement for Joe. For those in France, Dark Matter is airing on Sci-Fi France in the afternoons.
Thank you. Check it out.
Eva L, who decided to torture fans with Jack's photos in Carter's bag and in her office? I loved that nod.
Yeah.
You even got Colleen as Cassie. There's a photo of her there.
Looking back, I think it was something like the props department or the set dresser suggested, and I was on board because I was a shipper. I'm Jack shipper. So those nice little touches, I thought those subtle little touches, I thought were always great.
A fly near.
It's funny, she had Jack, and then when Woolsey took over, he had a framed photo of his Yorkie.
Of his Yorkie, absolutely.
Yes, which I remember specifically writing that into the script.
It's a small dog, Teyla.
Yeah.
A fly nearby. The script, Joe. Any script stories for season 4 that were written that didn't really end up making it into the season that you guys were tinkering with?
Script, definitely no scripts written.
Yeah.
In terms of story ideas, I don't think so. Usually, if we have a good idea, it gets written because you're writing 20 episodes a season. So. Aside from that idea, like I mentioned of, the Katie Brown pregnancy, I don't recall any specific stories that we abandoned.
Understood. Undomesticated Equine, were there any Zelenka scenes that were filmed but didn't make it into season 4? And would you tell us what would have happened with that character?
No. All those Zelenka scenes were gold. David Nichol is brilliant. So
the pigeon stuff was funny.
Yeah.
David Nichol has a mug with a pigeon on the side of it. That when we do the show, he brings in. It's like, that's just, what a coincidence that is. Let me see here. Akos wanted to know, why was Midway written out? We covered that. Joanne Foss, when I compare the technology of the Ancients on Atlantis and Destiny, I think that Destiny has more cool tech. What is your opinion on the different eras of ancient tech between Atlantis and Destiny?
I have very little opinion on the Ancients, just because, I'll be honest with you, it's not my favorite storyline.
Yeah.
Even though it was obviously like a core part of the Stargate mythology.
Yeah.
I know a lot of fans found that very interesting. I know Rob found that very interesting in particular. I personally found kind of more of the contemporary adventures, any sort of time travel adventures,
more concrete.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No, the Ancients definitely dipped into meta, metaverse and almost like spirits and angels kind of.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But this is the question that I'm sure Rob or Brad
I will ask them.
Love to answer.
Duja89 and others said in the chat they figured the impeccable style mentioned by Paul McGillion was in reference to those cat ears.
Oh yeah, probably. Next podcast, yeah.
Raj Luthra, was the idea ever thought of for the Asurans on the Atlantis replica who want to ascend to create human-made bodies to upload their consciousness and ascend? Again, back to Ascension.
Yeah, it's possible we bandied that idea about.
Okay. Dan Ben, Stargate visually, the Wraith beaming technology is similar to the Asgard beaming from Thor's chariot. Is there any reason and why there were several different types of Wraith stunners used in Atlantis? Sorry, that's kind of a mouthful.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was just, beaming technology similar to ship technology, I guess, in terms of sort of just being a means of conveyance. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, they were only similar insofar as essentially they accomplished the same goal, sort of like Star Trek.
Correct.
Beaming technology. As for the different guns or weapons, I don't know. I think basically they really depended on who was wielding them. And I know like the kind of the Wraith guards tended to use those the bigger stunners.
Yes,
And,
in season 1.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Lisa M. At first, Sheppard seemed to be resentful about Teyla's pregnancy. Is that a correct notion? Was it because he was perhaps jealous, or just what was your thought process there? Do you think?
No,
What's going on in his mind?
It wasn't scripted. Jealousy was not scripted. It was really more a matter of him wanting to look out for the team, and maybe even sort of a sort of subconscious kind of disappointment in a way that he was essentially going to be losing a team member, a valued team member.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I think it's interesting about his character and as a pure person, because he's like, this is our focus now. This child in your life, this one way or the other, this is a part of consideration. We're not going to pretend that this doesn't exist.
Right.
We have to sort this out and put it in its proper context, your pregnancy, and what we're going to do in order to move forward. It's an administrative responsibility, and as much as a team lead responsibility.
Yeah.
For sure. Erpo Homo. What would you think of reshooting older Rodney scenes with an older David Hewlett for The Last Man?
Maybe it could be fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, he looked pretty old in that episode, so
it will be a while.
Yeah. Dave is still looking pretty good.
He does. And by the time we have like holographic storytelling, maybe David will be at the right age at that point.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember actually he came by my office in his old man makeup, and he was like waiting outside and kind of looking in through my office window, and I didn't know who the hell he was. I thought he'd gotten lost on the tour, and I was like, I came out and then I realized, oh shit, it's David.
Do you remember telling me the story of some of your home movies that you shot while he was in that makeup?
I do.
There was one shot that you said that you got of him, and I wish that you could tell it because it was so funny the way you related to it. But he was like just kind of off in space, sitting in a chair, and you took a video of him, and it was kind of like this sweet / sad kind of take on an older Rodney, just sitting there doing his thing.
I got to dig that up again. I mean, I don't even know what I have anymore. Whatever I find, I always post. So if you do,
absolutely,
if you do a search for Stargate on my blog, you'll find a treasure trove of stuff. If you do a Twitter search just of my name, Baron Destructo, and then Stargate, because I always, hashtag Stargate, a slew of stuff as well.
What's the origin on Baron Destructo? Is that a college nickname?
Recall. Nope.
No.
I don't even recall. I've always been a fan of villains. So
there you go.
That's it. Yeah.
Zuby Force, did you ever film outside of North America for any of the movies or episodes? Well,
yeah, we did not. I mean, the furthest
the Arctic
traveled. Oh, sorry. Yes. Well, yeah, the Arctic. Yes. Good catch. Yes.
Absolutely.
The answer is yes. The Arctic.
Otherwise, I'm curious to the answer. What was the furthest you ever traveled?
No, I mean, we did White Sands. We did
True.
Vegas. Yeah, those two.
There were. Where was the Arctic stuff shot? For the Atlantis pilot and for the for the climax to Solitudes. There was a snowy mountaintop that you guys had shot for some of that, and I can't remember where it was.
Solitude was before my time.
Exactly, but it was the same location for the Atlantis pilot.
Yeah, and it was not in Canada?
It was in Canada.
It was in Canada. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It was on some nearby mountain range.
Oh, okay.
And I think the same one that that Christopher Judge was placed on, and he was afraid that he was going to be attacked by badgers for the Ark of Truth.
Badgers. Yeah.
You don't want to get those. You don't want to get them in your path. They'll mess you up.
Yeah, those wayward badgers, gangs roving, hitting people up for loose change and treats.
Like one of those old Disney villains with a cigar in their mouths.
Yeah.
Oh, funny. Joe, as always, it has been a pleasure. What a tremendous season. We've got one more for Atlantis. And, thank you again for coming back on and going through and dissecting this season. If anything out of the in particular that the fans wanted covered, let's make sure that you guys tune in February. You can ask those questions for follow-up to season 4. But I appreciate everyone who submitted this long list of questions, and I appreciate you for answering them.
No, my pleasure. As always, thank you, David.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you to the fans. We'll see you for season 5.
Season 5.
And the lovely and talented Robert Picardo.
Oh, yes, that's right. Bob Picardo is going to be back.
Yeah.
I would love to have an interview with you two both on.
That would be a blast.
I would love to do that this season. Thank you, Joe. I'm going to wrap it up on this end. Be well.
All right. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Joseph Mallozzi, executive producer for Stargate Atlantis Season 4. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I will be placing the link to the Stargate SG-1 New Mission fan film. That's going to be linked at the description once I'm finished posting this episode. I appreciate you tuning in. The show is brought to you every week for free, and we do appreciate you watching. But if you want to support the show further, buy yourself some of our themed swag. We're now offering t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, and hoodies for all ages, as well as cups and other accessories in a variety of sizes and colors at dialthegate.com. In the merchandise tab, click on a specific design to see what items are being offered. Checkout is fast and easy, and you can use a credit card or PayPal. Just visit dialthegate.com or go straight to dialthegate.com/merch. And thanks so much for your support. Next week, Tony Amendola, Master Braytac, is going to be joining us this coming Saturday, the 5th of February at 12 noon Pacific time, barring any unforeseen changes with his schedule. That's going to be what's going on. So stay tuned for that. We will be bringing him in exactly 7 days from now, unless something changes. Of course, we'll let you know. But plan on having Master Braytac live to answer your questions for 1 hour. I still have his list of questions from episode 2. He was our very first celebrity guest on Dial the Gate, and we didn't have the system set up quite yet for getting the questions over to me. I was still trying to figure out the flow. So I kept all those questions. I'm going to use those as the basis for the conversation, and we'll also allow other people to submit questions as well. But he's only going to be with us for about an hour, so keep that in mind. We won't be able to go over too much to be respectful of his schedule. I think that's all that we've got here. Thanks so much for tuning in. Much appreciation goes out to my producer, Linda Gate Gabber Fury, my moderators, Summer, Tracy, Keith, Jeremy, Reese, and Anthony. A big thanks to Frederick Marcoux at Concepts Web, our web developer for Dial the Gate, and a big thank you to Jeremy Heiner, our webmaster who keeps the site up to date. My name is David Reed. I appreciate you tuning in. I'm thrilled that we're able to continue to do this series into season 2. If you enjoy the episode, please click that like button and consider sharing it with a Stargate friend. Let's spread the word on Dial the Gate. We'll see you on the other side.